I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to
Who's going to break Smith's world title?
Look at these two go.
He's going to do it. His first victory.
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been.
Hello, I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to
Who's going to break Smith's world title?
He's done it.
Look at these two go.
He's going to do it. His first victory.
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been.
Hello and welcome to round number 8 of the 2024 FSR World Championship season. It's myself, Cameron Rodger, Darragh Thacker alongside me as we bring you through the action 44 laps around the Ardennes Forest. It's been a very tight championship up until now, and what we leave ourselves with is a very close battle coming into the final 3 rounds of the season. It is starting to become a bit of a two-horse race out the front, but the points nevertheless are getting very close. But also in the Constructors' Championship, we might be crowning Race Clutch today, subject to them basically not DNFing. They're already in position to win with the points that they have, as long as they do not lose quite a few points to Evo, so they are looking good to take a championship after an amazing season that Owen McGorgy and Jake Denhan are doing, as of course they are going for the title in the Drivers' Championship. It is a very interesting season that we've had so far. 10 rounds of action, 7 down. We're here at round 8 Spa-Francorchamps. We've been, of course, back at Bahrain to start the season. Working our way to Australia, then to Germany for the public vote, Singapore round 4, Britain, San Marino, Turkey, and now the final 3 races of the season. Spa-Francorchamps, which of course has been a staple on the calendar for the last few seasons since we've had the DLC here on rFactor 2. And then, of course, we return to COTA for the United States Grand Prix in 4 weeks' time before we finish the season, beginning of August in Japan. It's going to be a good one. And Darragh, of course, your first time on the World Championship, but of course, it's a championship that you've been involved with the Academy and the Pro Championship over the last couple of years. What just are you going to expect as we work our way here to round 8?
Yeah, should be a good race here at Spa. Difficult, as we've seen, on the strategy to really decide where you're going to go. We've seen 2 stops, we've seen 1 stop so far. This should hopefully be a good race. You mentioned the tightness in the championship, only 10 points coming in to this race between Bock and McGorgy. So this should hopefully be a cracker. And with 3 rounds to go, anything's really up for grabs.
Absolutely. Here is how the championship lies. So, Yannick Bock is leading by 10 points over Owen McGorgy. And the very interesting point here is how the last couple of races have gone. For instance, if we look at round 7 last race, McGorgy had 1 opportunity on the final lap, but he had some wheel spin coming out onto the back straight, couldn't make the opportunity, so Bock won that one. A couple of races back at Silverstone, round number 5, McGorgy again, he was going for it, but unfortunately tyres fell off and he had to let Jake Denhan go and run for the second place. He wasn't able to overtake. He was then unfortunately giving back Bock a couple of points. And then back at round 4 at Singapore, similar situation. McGorgy couldn't overtake Bock. So if those 3 races went slightly differently, McGorgy would be leading the championship. But Bock has been putting in some great performances and some great defensive drives. He's been putting his strategy to get himself the track position and then being able to hold on to it. And of course, Jake Denhan a little bit far behind because he missed round number 4 at Singapore, but he's still within a shout if some issues start to happen for the other drivers. Of course, we have Brackshock up there, 4th place. He's having a fairly quiet season, but very consistent. Then we have Bianca Lilla, who unfortunately has not scored proper points since round number 4. And unfortunately, he also has a race ban for today after the accumulation of multiple incidents. after having that contact with Van Vukas in the previous round. Of course, Simoncic not having the best season he would have wanted. Already a couple of no scores. He's not racing tonight. Zolzhuks is reserving for him and Rafa. And then Grankvist, his championship charge has derailed a little bit. Dennis Jordan, once championship contender, also not quite going the way. Mitch Hoyer, multiple-time race winner, down in P9, all equal on 57 points. And then Sander Callis getting himself inside the top 10. But let's work our way into the qualifying session and let's see how it looks after the first laps have come in. We are at sunrise here, so it's about 7 o'clock in the morning as we work our way into qualifying. And Darragh, of course, when you have the sunrise, this means the track is very cold and it will be getting slightly hotter as the race goes on.
Yeah, and evolution, even in qualifying, may be important. Getting that last time in could be pretty key for some of these guys. So we'll keep an eye and see if any of those times get any closer. 43-1 with Jake Darragh is currently the fastest time, but it is close behind the likes of McGorky Jordan, only about half a hundredth of a second between them. So it is still close. But I think we're going to have to wait for these final runs, really. I think they're all going to come out of the pit lane relatively soon, get themselves ready to go for one final flying lap, and we'll kind of see where the pace is at. Because I think we can probably see a couple of improvements from some of the guys further down the field, but at the same time, some of the times that we've already got in so far are very, very strong.
Yeah, this is some very fast time. 4 tenths between Dennehan and McGorgy at the front. That is absolutely insane because the next 4 cars obviously goes down to 7th place, which is Alex Maggio, who's replacing the band driver of Bianca for this race. We have a few different reserve drivers. That's what we'll see, of course. We've got Kevin Morville as well in for Super Venturi. Mitchie Hoyer completing his lap, and he goes up into 14th place as he continues on for another lap. No, he doesn't. He's going to sit there. Janis Brackshot, though, going purple in that first sector.
He was taking the camera line, wasn't he, through turn 1?
Was that on the
extra
stream?
Of course it was on the stream. We put it up on a replay, Cam, don't you worry. But no, so good to see some times on the board, but you can still see clearly some track evolution here because purple sector times coming in from drivers not even in the top 10 at the moment.
Yeah, I guess Sector 1 is basically just one corner, though, so if you nail the exit out of Turn 1, then maybe by a couple of thousandths of a second, you might be able to get that purple time. Interesting track here, though, Spa. We're, as you would expect, low downforce setups. I would be surprised if anyone isn't on the minimum wing possible because of these long straights, but then that makes the car tricky. All the corners around here are pretty much medium speed or high speed corners, so you actually need downforce, but then you can't. It's for the straights, so it's a very difficult one to set the car up. What is Brackshaw going to do, though, into that final chicane? Slightly missing the apex, actually. Had a couple of stabs at it into the first part. Wiggling on the X as well, trying to get that power down. He's 1 second off pole at this moment in time, and across the line he goes. Is he going to jump up? Yes, he is. Up into 6th place. That's a little bit more like it.
Yeah, 3/10 improvement, but it just shows how close the drivers are, really, in the midfield, because we've got a Brackshek in 7th with 7 tenths away from the fastest time. And then we look back to Zalagianis, who's only about 3.5 tenths back, but is, 10 positions, 9 positions lower in the field. So it is a really, really tight midfield section, and some of these drivers are going to have to be really, really effective in these final runs, and every 100 is going to count. No end. Isaac Gillison knows that in Ferrari, and he will ride up Eau Rouge and Radion. Let's see if he can gain a couple more tenths, because I can shoot him up 3-4 rows.
Yeah, he's finally got his own livery, his car number of 24 for the remainder of the season. Of course, he was technically taken over from Alex Siebel last few races, and now he's got his number, and he's been having a decent first few races in the World Championship, and not necessarily up towards the front like he would have liked, but certainly solid races. He has had some reduced practice due to some other races this weekend, but let's see what he can do. Work his way through that middle sector. You can really use some of the curbs around this track, and you absolutely have to avoid some of the other ones. In through Pouan, just the tiniest of lift as you work your way now down in towards the Fagnes chicane, which I would expect is about 5th gear, maybe just down to 4th very fast before flicking it through that left-hander, trying to take it flat out all the way to the gravel on that right-hand side. Track limit's a little bit lenient around this track. You can have a good go at it as he wiggles the end, coming out onto the back straight.
Yeah, it doesn't look too comfortable, does it, for Gillison? You just see the rear end sliding everywhere, really pushing, as you mentioned, those track limits, just trying to get every little 100th, just trying to see if he can use that line to, benefit him going into the next corner. Of course, racing drivers wouldn't be using those track limits if it didn't benefit them. So Gillison surely thinking that he's gaining a couple of hundredths by carrying more mid-apex speed, but he's going to come up to the line, and this looks like it could be a very competitive lap time.
Absolutely. It's across the line up into 9th place. That's not too bad. Just one behind. Yannick Bock, who's working his way to the end of Sector 2. He's improving in that first sector. And what you're going to see as well is a lot of these drivers are only going to get 2 timed laps, not the regular 3, subject to the length of this circuit. And Bock is working his way up towards Blanchimont, and he's improving in the first 2 sectors so far. Just needs to have a nice braking zone to try and get himself a couple of tenths. Actually, we'll get him inside the top 5, so let's see if he can do that out of the final corner. Such a tricky final corner here. Of course, a while now since they reprofiled that, about 15 years ago. Across the line, where can he put himself up into 4th place? That is a little bit more like it, something that he would have wanted. And Dennis Jordan up in 3rd place. I haven't mentioned his name yet, but this is a bit more like it. He has been having a tough season, as we mentioned, down in 8th place. A best finish of only P4, but this is maybe a little bit more to his liking.
Yeah, but important really for the 2 race clutch guys of Dennehan and McGorky to see that Bock has finished the session in P4, and they've got Jordan as a buffer for now if he doesn't start to leapfrog them on these final runs, because with Bock, leading the championship, great to see him starting behind if you're a race clutch driver, and they will be very pleased to see that while they're still on their flying laps. We've still got some more drivers coming across the line and some green sector times, nothing purple that we can see, but Hoy is going to come up to the line. P15, his current position, but he jumps up to P7 and shows how much improvement there still is out there on the track.
Yeah, a few drivers starting to get their improvements in. Dennehan's not going faster on his lap, but his teammate McGorgy, purple in that middle sector. We've also got Dennis Jordan, who's just around him on the track, improving as well. But we'll see McGorgy coming out of the final corner. Can he challenge his teammate for the pole position? Up towards line, Dennis Jordan goes 2nd place. McGorgy goes up to the front by 0.03 of a second, takes it away from Jake Dennehan. Is there going to be someone across the line to try and overcome that? No, they can't. Block ends up in 4th place. Maggio in 5th, and Jarl Tyne down in 6th place as well. So what a exciting end there. McGorgy just scraping it at the line, and Dennis Jordan coming in for it, because look at the gap between him and Yannick Bock behind, 3 tenths between 3rd and 4th. Certainly a close qualifying session, and that is just what we like to see when we come towards the race. Let's get confirmation of that on your screen. As we see, it is a race clutch 1-2, and that is a little bit worrying for some of the drivers around them, I'm sure. Dennis Jordan, Yannick Bock, the 2 long-time friends on the 2nd row. Maggio in World Championship, of course, a pro front runner. Up in 5th place, that's a bit more like it for him. Jarl Tyne is in 6th place in the number 6 car as he comes into Netrex for the remainder of the season. Jan Grankvist, your former championship leader, is down in 7th place. Mitchie Hoyer in 8th, Callas in 9th, and Jans Brakshock rounding out your top 10. Isaac Gillison, then Zolt Jukes, reserving for Rafa in P12. Patrick Severt, he of course got on the podium back at the San Marino Grand Prix. He's back in for CMC Go Team Racing in 13th place. Valeriano in 14th. Thomas Vack is in 15th. Then Ruven Macheda for the 2nd Optiminal. So Thomas Vack is reserving there for Matt Williams. Then we have Zalagianis, who hasn't really had the season that he would have wanted in 17th place. Van Boeke's in 18th. Morville on his reserve for Super Venturi in 19th, and 20th is Philip Pushki for Evo, and the final driver on the grid is Stoyan Barbkov there. So very interesting times, Darragh, as we work into the warm-up session. We'll give the drivers a couple of minutes just to work out exactly what they're going to do. But what do you reckon we can expect after what you've seen in the pro race?
I think we're going to see some good racing. We might see some contact. We saw quite a bit of contact in that pro race, but that was it's kind of a hazard of the circuit. You can often see a little bit of argy-bargy between the drivers, particularly as it's difficult to run side by side through there. But these guys, there's a reason that they're in the World Championship. I'm sure they know exactly how to race, particularly against some of the other top guys in the order. I just wanted to say as well, there comes a Maggio being at P5 in qualifying, because coming from the Pro Championship, that's a fantastic time.
Yeah, although what we have seen, quite funnily, is it's often him and his teammate Sergio Fletcher in the Pro Championship. They actually often get pole position by a good 2 or 3 tenth margin, and they are doing World Championship times. Of course, the race pace and consistency potentially is where they lack. We'll find out today for Maggio. But in Patrick Severt, he's a pro front runner, and he, as I mentioned, was able to get on the podium in the San Marino Grand Prix. So they do have pace, these top level pro drivers. It just depends if they can sort of perform 2 races in a row. If you think about it, half an hour ago, they were just finishing a 38-lap race, and now they're going to come for another 44 laps here around Spa-Francorchamps. Is going to be a tough one. And for Owen McGorgy, he's 10 points behind Yannick Bock. So if he finishes first and Bock is in 4th place, as they are on the grid, then they'll be equal on points, because 10 points is the difference. 25 for first and 15 points for 4th place. So, Darragh, I think that's a good prospect to look at, looking for a close championship fight in the final couple of rounds.
It hopefully will be sorry, let me start that sentence again. It hopefully will be a tight championship battle towards the end of the season. We are looking at the same in the Pro Championship, particularly with 4 drivers only split by 10 points or so, 12 points I should say. So it'd be great to have something similar in the World Championship for us to all go to Suzuka and still have lots to look forward to, lots to end up deciding. And when we have grids such as this with McGorgy, Dennehan at the front, you know, Bock a little bit further back, but still right there, it kind of gives us that little carrot dangling in front of us that we might have that really tight championship battle with only maybe a couple of points in it as we get into the final round.
But there's still 75 points on offer, including today, and only 4 drivers have more than 75 points. Top 4 in the championship, P5 Bianca is on 66. So things can change around very quickly if someone wants to start stepping up. For instance, Dennis Jordan, he's got 57 points. If he goes and wins the final 3 races, then that's going to push him up very, very high indeed. He'll be on what McGorgy's in now. So it's certainly still up for grabs for a driver who wants to come and take the challenge to either Bock or the Race Clutch guys at the top. But it's never, ever an easy one. I think today, with it being 44 laps, and we have seen that unfortunately, the hard tyres are not the best tyre to be on, but you might have to use them for the lap distance here, which means it's going to be very interesting because, as you're mentioning, it's 7 o'clock in the morning, the race time. So it's very early, and the tyres are going to be cold. They're not going to be working as well. So look for the softer tyres potentially to actually be a little bit more usable here than we have seen at other tracks. And therefore, the strategy might become quite difficult because you have to use the softer tyres for the temperatures, but then they don't last as long.
Yeah, and especially as we see through the race, maybe that would lend itself to using a softer compound of tyre earlier on in the race, and then moving to mediums, maybe hards towards the end, just as the track temperature increases. Those tyres, of course, you don't want to put too much heat in them; they can start sliding. They can cause you a little bit of an error, as we saw from lots of drivers, particularly in the Pro Championship, getting beat, sliding around. It is difficult, so I think it will have an impact on the. I think on the decisions that the drivers make in regards to their strategy, but this should be quite an interesting one because there are lots of different ways that the drivers can go.
What we've seen this season is basically every race has been won by a different strategy, and every race has been quite a difference in strategy from quite a few of the teams. And one of the teams who were doing something a little bit more wacky often is actually the Race Clutch team at the front. Now that they've got both drivers there, I wonder if they try something to sort of control the race a little bit. It does look like Jake Dennehan might be on the hard compound tyres. And if so, he's the only one in the top 20. Of course, they all go back to hards. Now we start the formation lap. But that could be an interesting one if when it updates, he does remain on those hard compound tyres. But let's run you through the grid for today's race. And of course, we're starting with the Race Clutch cars at the front. It is Owen McGorgy, Jake Dennehan on that front row. Dennis Jordan and Yannick Bock in behind your front 2 rows. Some of the fastest drivers we have in this championship. Hot prospect for the 44 laps today. Maggio in reserve in P5. Tyan Grankfist there in P7. Before we get Michi Hoyer down in P8, who unfortunately ended this race in the barrier after an interesting battle last time out last year. Callas and Brackshock end your top 10 with Isaac Hillison and Zolchuk's inside your front 8 rows of the grid. Sevet there in P13, and then Valeriano in P14. Then Thomas Vack and Reuven Macheda are there inside your top 16. Top Timnal looking to score some more points. Zalagianis just outside of the points. Points to P15 in this championship. Van Bucas is in 18th, Morville 19th, and Philip Pushki having a difficult season, but down there in P20. And then the final driver He's going to beat Stoyan Barbkov from the back of the grid. And I do wonder, with what we've seen, Darragh, over the course of the season, we've somewhat had slower starts to the races. The first 10 laps or so, everyone's kind of waiting for that first pit stop. But I just wonder if here, around Spa, with all the slipstream and everything that is happening, are we going to see a few Larry moves up into Lake On?
I think we're always going to see a few Larry moves into Lacom. It's not a real race at Spa if you don't, really, is it? So I think we may see a couple of moves. I think for the front guys particularly, they might be more willing to hold station, might be a little bit more, consolidatory, not necessarily working their way too far up the field too quickly. And like you said, waiting for those first pit stops. But a couple of the drivers further back, especially a couple of the guys who maybe had good races in the Pro Championship. I'm looking at Shooks, Sevit, Vac down in 12th, 13th and 15th. They might be looking to gain a few positions off the line, get themselves into a good position before the pit stops, and I think it's definitely going to be open. But I think for the front guys, probably the front four at least, it should be relatively single file, but you can never rule it out, can you?
Yeah, you certainly can't. Watch for someone getting a bad run as well out of La Source, not getting the power down to the ground that they would have wanted, and they're going to be absolutely swamped. I remember, was it Robin Panzar maybe, up on the front row, I think it was 2019 or so, he made a bit of a mistake and he got absolutely swamped, had to cut over the over the top of Radion and went down outside of the top 10 that occasion. It can be done, but for Omagorgi, it's an important race. He really, really needs to win this one, to be honest, to start putting some pressure on Yannick Bock. Bock knows what's coming. He's had these guys fighting with him all season, but he certainly needs to be a little bit more prepared coming in towards the final couple of rounds, knowing that they are going for the championship. As mentioned, Race Clutch are pretty much going to win the Constructors' Championship, because I highly doubt, with Pushki down in P20, that Evo are going to score enough points over Race Clutch to keep that one going. So Race Clutch will probably be the Constructors' Championships champions by the end of today. But now we get onto the grid, and we will wait for the final drive of Stoyan Barbkov to come around the final corner and to get on the grid to start this 44-lap Belgian Grand Prix. Is round 8 of the FSR World Championship for 2024. We've got the two Race Clutch cars on that front row as they line themselves up and they wait for the lights to come on, and it is going to be an intense battle between the two teammates, with Dennis Jordan and Yannick Bock behind. They're all going for championships. They're all going for positions. And as the lights come on, it's going to be Owen McGorgy from that pole position on the front row. Can he hold on from his teammate Jake Danahan to his left-hand side? And as we come up towards turn number 1 for the first time of asking, it's a great start there by Owen McGorgy. We've already got drivers off into the grass in the background. And Dennis Jordan actually has got down the inside. Might have a little bit of a run. I think it's Jarl Tyne who went off. He was the driver on that grass. We're side by side a few cars further back. It is Alex Maggio trying to get the run. He does get past Grankvist, holds on to that one in P5. As we work our way up, the Race Clutch cars are pulling away.
Yeah, they single file out as they work their way up the hill, but the Race Clutch cars, as you said, really putting their foot down, working together well off of the start, and definitely got the launch they were looking for. Dennis Jordan just about holding off Bock for the time being, and really Maggio doing a good job to stay in P5 as well. They worked their way through I think it was Isaac Gillison getting a little bit leery as they make their way through and in towards Malmedy, but a couple of looks from drivers trying to make moves, but by this part of the lap, you're really looking at single file unless there's a mistake from one of the drivers in front.
Yeah, great start from the top 3, top 4 to keep in those positions. Grankvist was the one who's actually having a run on Maggio. Maggio holding on to that P5, but in the end, Grankvist losing that place to Hoyer. So Hoyer up 2 places already as they have sort of spread out a little bit. It's actually Costas Van Bucas who's had a DNF, so he's obviously out. The old Tynes in P19, not the start that Netrex would have wanted. We'll try and get a view of that a bit later on in the race. A bit further down the grid as well, looking into the mid-pack, everyone is just keeping it nice and calm. The only driver, or the only 2 drivers on the hards are Callas and then Pushki down at the bottom, so look for them to go a little bit longer in this first stint.
Yes, we get towards the end of this opening lap. It's going to be really interesting just to see what happens down at the bus stop. Of course, really the first really heavy braking zone of the race. Not too many here at Spa. It can be difficult. You could say that down at Bruxelles is a heavy braking zone, but this really is. You've got to get on the stoppers really, really early. And you can try and look for moves, which is exactly what Salagrianis was trying on the back of Shooks, looking for P11. But as they cross the line to end lap 1, it's single file. They all seem like they are relatively calm with where they are at the moment. And there is no one getting overly aggressive, although I did see someone look for it in the background.
Yeah, the slipstream is rather large around here, actually, but you do have to be within that magical 1 second. And look at the run here that Jake Dennehan's got on his teammate. He's going to have to go for the overtake, and he does to the left-hand side. Dennis Jordan following in that slipstream, but not close enough to try and make a move. As in the background, Grankfist is up the inside of Michi Hoyer. He's going to slide past nice and easily. Remember, we do have the hybrid push-to-pass system where the drivers can choose when to use that extra power. And of course, for overtaking, you can use it, but also for defending. However, if a driver's going to get past you, you're not going to waste your battery and, just defend for no reason. So I think that was Hoyer just letting Grankfist go.
Yeah, it may be smart. Just to manage your race at this stage. You don't really want to be getting caught up in incidents. We saw it particularly in the Pro Championship, how a lot of drivers, just a little bit of an error, just a little bit of a collision, really ruined their race. They got stuck behind other drivers as a result, and in the end, had to settle with what they had originally.
Well, and that was not the right Yaltani replay. Let's have a look at this. Yaltani gets a bit of a bad start. He gets swamped, and one of the Brabham cars comes over, and does he manage to save it? Yes, he does. That's a really good save there by Yaltani to not bin the car. Of course, he goes for the off-track, and then a little bit further up, you can see Van Vukas go side by side, losing the rear end, and a big hit into the wall there. Absolutely massive collision with one of the Go Team cars, and that's a heavy impact. And I think that's Pushki maybe just having to go to the right-hand side, as well as Kevin Morville. So big end to the day for Kostas Van Vukas.
And I do love that camera angle where you just see his front nose just sticking out of the pit lane, and that was it. But yeah, clearly 2 wheels flying off the back of the car. That was the end of his day, and it's just so difficult to go side by side through a Rouge and Randy. On the slightest little bit of contact, the car's going to get out of shape. It's going to wiggle. It's going to, you're going to lose all control, and then you're a passenger going into the left-hand side barrier, going into the right-hand side barrier. It just is a nature of the corner, and that's why you've got to be so careful. But it's tricky. When you want to make those moves early on, you want to be aggressive, but this Spa-Francorchamps circuit is so dangerous in doing that.
It's probably one of the most dangerous tracks out there in the world, despite obviously the modernisation and everything that's happening. I know we don't have the absolute latest scan of the track here in rFactor 2 with some of the further safety changes, but it's such a high-speed track, and it's fairly narrow actually in terms of modern standards, and is low downforce as well, so the car's always moving around and not being exactly where you want it. So it is a tough circuit, and often when you have a crash around here, it's a big one. So the drivers will be wanting to try and avoid that where they can. We've, of course, going back to the front now, we have seen the race clutch cars swap around once more. Are they just trying to control that at the front, or is this a situation where Jake thought he had the speed, but now it's actually Owen coming back?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, it's interesting to see these top 3 starting to pull away from the rest. Bok will not be happy to see this happening. Of course, losing tabs with his championship rivals in the form of the 2 race clutch cars, but Dennis Jordan will be very pleased to be attaching himself to the back of these 2. And I think it kind of helps race clutch with their strategy as well to have Dennis Jordan just sitting on the rear wing. If he's not going to be attacking, if he's just going to be sitting there, it creates a buffer to Bok if anything starts to go awry. And even if Jordan starts to try and work his way through the top 2, Dennehan and McGorgy are teammates. They can try and work together to kind of quell that kind of challenge. So this is a really good situation for race clutch to be in, and they're really playing this race perfectly in the opening format.
Yeah, we saw this, was it, I think last year? Yeah, it was Jake and Colin Spork last year. Now they weren't, they weren't teammates last year as such, but they were working together like this. And then there was a group of Jordan and Simičić in behind that they just weren't able to keep up in that front-running battle. And it was a difficult situation for them because the race clutch cars were working together. But in this situation, Dennis has actually been able to keep up, which is good. The issue for him is that Yannick is slightly further away to really help at this moment in time. It's Jordan who's got those extra few car lengths, so they really need to be working in a pair if they want to try and get past, because Dennehan can sort of hold up Jordan as such naturally just by being there and sort of making it his life a little bit more tricky.
Yeah, but we'll see how this plays out really, because Bok has come back into this, hasn't he? So the Evo team will be happy to see him sitting on the rear wing, but it just kind of feels like it's ebbing and flowing at this stage. Field spread non-existent, 15 seconds between the top 20 as we get through lap 4, and it's kind of stagnating. After that opening lap, of course, you get that break with everyone getting single file. The gaps really haven't widened terribly much. I mean, looking down that order, really the only somewhat sizable gaps. I mean, Patrick Sevitt Barbecue is 9/10, but that's kind of the level we're talking about here. It is a really, really close battle, and everyone being able to slipstream off each other means that we're just really waiting for these first pit stops.
Yeah, I also think this is just part of what we see quite often, where no one takes ridiculous risks in that first stint because it just wastes time. At this situation in the race, you're just trying to not lose time to the cars ahead of you. And we're starting to see some pressure from Dennis Jordan, actually. He's going to get the run. He's going to go to the outside of Lake Com. No, he backs out of that one. But Denhan definitely having to defend there. So what Dennis is doing here is very good, actually, because he's putting the pressure. He's forcing them to try and move, try and do something up ahead, though we have had an issue somewhere. Who's dropping down? I see Grankfist, he's dropping down, as well as Valeriano, and Maggio was involved. There's certainly been some incident up towards Lake.
We'll have a look at it now on a replay. Very possible that we had our first collision at Lakon of the race. Here's Maggio with his onboard. You can see the front runners coming through the shots in the foreground, but there's Maggio. Oh, does he get a bit of a love tap from behind? Braking a little bit earlier than the driver was expecting, and therefore maybe really just becoming a victim of his own racing line now.
Yeah, Grankfist just braking too late. Big hit there on the back of the VEM car, and he slows down, I would assume, to sort of give the position back to as such, but unfortunately for Maggio, that's not going to help his day, and with a bit of a rejoin, no, that was actually all good in the end, but that was not ideal because Grankfist struggled a little bit in the championship recently. He's now down in 15th place, and where has Maggio got to? Maggio's up in 9th, a bit further up ahead in the train, so in the end, actually, Maggio didn't lose too much from that, but the issue is his tyres are going to be a bit ruined, and he's now got to get through this train of cars. As we've said, no one's really overtaking at the moment.
No, everyone happy to sit really where they are, and I think that's kind of testament to how we saw that incident with Grankfist. It can happen where, you know, the drivers are just not really keen to overtake. They're not really keen to be pushing the limit, and so we'll be braking a little bit early, maybe lifting off, and drivers behind can get caught out in that. You know, they're not necessarily expecting such a lax line to be taken into some corners, and that is how some of these incidents do occur. Valeriano is overtaking Dalagianis for P10 with the DRS, but where we're seeing the brakes in the DRS trend, we're seeing those moves being made, but that's because when you're on the button, you have that much more of a pace advantage. We're just not really seeing anybody force the move in a place or in a way that might really risk the cars in their strategy and in their position in the race at the moment.
Yeah, and it's so tight throughout the field. That is actually quite difficult to do so because everyone's getting the slipstream off each other, and of course the DRS. We have a very short DRS zone. You can see it on the track map. It's way past the Kemmel curve, which is normally where the DRS line is, so it's yeah, a good few hundred meters shorter. No DRS on the front stretch either, so just that one short zone. But with the rest of the track and how the slipstream works, you basically only need that one zone to try and stay close, and that's good. Hopefully we actually can see that, because at the moment it's 10 seconds for the top 15, and as mentioned before, P15 is points, so Grankfist has that 1 point in his pocket, but Yaltain is going to try and take that away from him, I'm sure.
Yeah, let's see if he can do it. Grankfist, of course, with that incident, maybe lacking a little bit of confidence just in the short term after that little collision he had with Maggio, but Tyne, as we'd expect, not necessarily forcing the issue, just sitting in behind, waiting his turn, really, and really waiting to pounce on any kind of mistake. It's the same that we saw for the likes of Hoyer and the guys who have benefited from Maggio and Grankfist having their incident. If you can just keep your nose clean, just keep your waiting around, not doing too much in these opening stints, you can just pick off the positions of those drivers that have those accidents, and really just let that run through and benefit you as you work your way through this opening stint. But we can see at the front, you can see with the DRS lighting up, Bok is just starting to fall out of it.
So strategy-wise, let's say the mediums go 15 laps, so do 15-15 to get to lap 30, then you have 14 laps left, which is actually a little bit awkward because it's a bit long for the soft and obviously too short for the hards. So then do you go sort of 13-13, try and stretch out a hard stint at the end, or do you then go to a 3-stop and try loads of soft tyres, or do you, I don't know, try and stretch the soft at the end? It's certainly an interesting one. I do think we are going to see some drivers try and avoid the hard compound tyres just due to the track temperatures, but you never know, you might need it. It's going to be an interesting one, as Grankfist has gone off again. This driver not having a good day.
Yeah, let's see what's happened this time. Same region of the circuit, really, isn't it? Up at Lacon once again, Grankfist. Oh, there's a little bit of contact there from someone around the outside. Maybe part of the physics of rFactor 2, where you get a little bit of a tap around the outside while pretty much left hand down, and you're going to be spinning around. A good attempt to move around the outside, and then yeah, you can see just a bit of a tangle of wheels, isn't it? Really, there's not really too much in that for either driver to do. Yeah,
Zoltjuk there. I mean, Grankfist was coming quite fast on the outside line, trying to go around the outside, so he was taking a lot of risk there. And in the track notes before, it was mentioned about that second apex of Lacon. Basically there's certain rules for the difference between slow and fast corners and how the racing is judged. And the second apex has been judged as a fast corner for the reason that you shouldn't really be going side by side there unless you're very certain of the move. But let's see how that one goes, because Grankfist has come into the pit lane. Hopefully that's just for new tyres and not for a DNF.
Yeah, we've already had one driver out of this race. We're seeing more moves at the back. With Tyne working his way through ahead of Shoots up into 14th now, so getting a couple more points in that regard. But you can start to see that gap opening. A couple of seconds between Tyne and Patrick Sevitt, who just is going through the front of shots as we change camera angle. And, that's where it starts to become a little bit of a worry. You don't want that gap to become exponential in the way it's increasing. And for Tyne right now, he's going to be very committed in trying to catch back up and back into the DRS in the top 13.
And things have changed around a little bit because Valeriano's got past his teammate Maggio as well. So this is a lot stronger from Valeriano, who's only had a best place of 10th back at the first race of the season in Bahrain, and struggled a little bit since then. So really his first time back up inside the top 10 all season. Now round 8 on lap 8 of 44. And he's now starting to play. Of course, Maggio is actually going to be struggling, I would assume, on the tyres a little bit after that huge sort of half spin that he had. But it was at top speed, so a lot of heat would have gone into those tyres. So he needs to be a little bit more careful on them. So let's see if he can hold on to his teammate just up ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, this is the kind of the phase in the stint, about halfway through the stint. Maybe not halfway through the stint, maybe the end of the stint if you're Alessandro Maggio. But where we're starting to see the gaps open up. But I love how my point was immediately shot down before it was even really beginning.
Gutted.
But we'll see what Maggio can do with the strategy, because this looks like it's an interesting one.
Yes, so let's have a think. So there's going to be 35 laps to go. So that is a bit long for a medium strategy. So that's a bit tough. He might have to go medium hard from there. It's a bit early, unless he wants to go down the 3-stop route, which we are yet to know if anyone's going to commit early to a 3-stop, where of course your average laps would be about 11 laps if you divide the race in 4, or if you go to a 2-stop, then your average laps will be about 14 or 15. So that's really the lap markers that we're looking for. If around lap 11 people start coming in, then we know they're going for a 3-stop. They'll be making an extra stop, but they'll be a lot faster. And what I can tell you from the pro race earlier, the tyres do drop off a decent amount in terms of lap time. So you can still drive on them. They're not sort of undrivable, but the pace is just not there compared to drivers who get onto those fresher tyres and then can go for a big undercut.
So would it be possible maybe to go on the mediums, maybe like a 16 on 2 sets of mediums, then a 12 on the softs, or would that be a little bit too long on the mediums?
Yeah, you can definitely do that. Well, it's the fastest way. I don't know, but you can do 16 on mediums.
Yeah, because that could be an interesting one. Maybe a couple of drivers go that way, but a 3-stop could also be quite fun for any drivers maybe who are hoping to just be ploughing through on some soft tyres to the end of the race. Look at this side-by-side action through Blanchimont, and Zalagianis is right in the middle of this as they're nearly all three wide into the bus stop.
So Zalagianis in the middle, now to the outside of Patrick Sevitt, who's just inside the top 10. Into the pits goes Jarl Tyne, who's trying to get involved in that, probably seeing the stopper last lap as well of Maggio. That might sort of be the opening of a 3-stop strategy for certain people as the Norwegian driver comes in his second race of the season. And of course, he's well up inside the top 10, even the top 5 back at the Turkish Grand Prix last time around. For the race lead, we are seeing a change though. Jake Dennehan goes to the front, McGorgy down to second place. So we have seen this a few times this season where the race clutch guys like to swap around, and is now Jake to the front.
Yeah, we'll see how this all pans out in the regard of the strategy. Maybe there's, clearly it's choreographed. Clearly there's something going on behind the scenes that we will await to see. Maybe in terms of the strategy, with possible pit stops coming up in the not too distant future. But the front guys are still really close. So, clearly choreographed in some way. But we'll find out relatively soon how.
We just missed Sever there, getting overtaken by Zalagianis. They're battling into the final corner, and then at the end of the Kemmel Straight, that was then position was reversed. So it is now Zalagianis up inside the top 10. A much stronger result, or well, we won't say result just yet. 30 odd laps to go, but at least the pace is looking good for the Greek driver. And actually, both ground effects up inside the top 10. With Callas in P6. That is a much better showing from this team so far in the opening phases of this race. But we are on to lap 10, lap 11 coming. So it's definitely 3-stop strategy for those who want to do it and try and get some sort of undercut. This is the time where you're going to want to jump in a little bit wiggly there, actually, from Sever as he tries to come back up towards Zalagianis. But I think this time around, he's going to be staying in line.
Yeah, just sticking in behind for now. And with these guys fighting, they are just losing, time hand over fist to the top 9 now. So we can really start to see this major break in the train between Valeriano and Zalagianis at this stage of the race. A quarter of the way through is, as we've talked about, possibly where we might see some drivers if they want to go in for a 3-stop. But maybe they might get longer as well if they're looking for more soft compound of tyres towards the end of the race. It's kind of up in the air, but the brakes in the train are going to be really important at this stage because it kind of sets the scene for your race.
I think we know what happened there. I think that Jan Grankvist just didn't want to finish the race there. So he's out of this race after having a miserable start to this race. And that is just going from bad to worse, unfortunately, for the Super Venturi driver. So, but it's a bit of a shame for a DNF there, but turning right on a left-handed kink is probably not the way that you're going to go around the corner. And this car certainly didn't do so. So he ends in the wall. And that is a bit of a shame from the driver who, of course, had the championship lead after the second race of the season. But that is how it goes. And I'm sure he'll be back for more up towards the front. But his season has, unfortunately, gone downhill the last 4 or 5 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, disappointing, really, in that regard. I mean, being championship leader must feel like a lifetime ago in that regard, dropping away. I mean, only having a 9th place finish in the last 5 rounds in the top 10. So really not being the best of second halves of the season for Jan Grankvist. I mean, at this stage of the season, he's tied on points with Dennis Jordan and Mitchie Hoyer. And they're currently running 3rd and 5th. So they're having a much better day regardless. I'm sure he won't be too bothered about P8 in the championship, whether that becomes P10 or slightly worse. But it just kind of, it snowballs, doesn't it, really? You look at your championship position going into a race and it just gets lower and lower and lower, and that confidence can just start to ebb.
Oh, certainly can. And we just missed there, but Maggio got past Kevin Morville there. We've got another driver in the pit lane, Zalagianis, who is coming down at the end of lap 11, so splitting the race equally there. And Maggio, that's correct, yeah, he's on the hard compound tyres, so I was expecting with the early stop, didn't actually quite recognise that. I was expecting him to go for, not to the mediums maybe, but he's gone to the hard, so he's going a bit longer in this race. So even though he's getting the undercut, he has gone to the slower tyres though, so it's not going to be quite as effective, but he is now going to go deeper into this race. And he does have some clean air. Got a big gap up to Barbakov ahead, so he might be able to make this work in some way. But as ever in FSR 24, we never can predict which strategy is going to come out, because even in Singapore, we saw Bok do a 2-stop with a couple of soft compound tyres and making them last. So you never know what's going to work.
Yeah, and this could be quite good for Maggio, being on that hard compound tyre, being in a position where he can just drive into free air. Of course, with the guys further up, they may be in management mode, they may be, not pushing each other too hard, happy to sit in the trains that they're currently in. And Maggio may be able to kind of use that to his advantage and work himself into that clean air to try and further himself in this race. It's going to be really interesting just to see over the next 5-10 minutes, really, where he comes out after the first stops. But yeah, as we get on towards lap 13 of 44, 12 laps gone, Maggio looks like he's tried something different, and it might be working out. Two-stop likely for him as he's got onto the hard, and definitely different to what we've seen from the guys leading at the front.
So we see Callas, Brakshock come down pit road, Valeriano, Patrick Sever as well. So lap 12 seemingly the one for them. And if you do 12, 12, 12, then it's 36. You have 8 at the end on soft, potentially something along those lines if they're these guys going for the 3 stopper. But hard tyres actually coming the way, so maybe we are looking at 2 stops today. Let's see how that one works out. Side by side down the hill it is going to be, as that's Yoltine getting ahead of Valeriano, using the undercut there actually to make up a good couple of places from where Valeriano, who's inside the top 10, so Yoltine might have done a bit of a blinder there with the undercut strategy as he's trying to work himself back up, but maybe not. Is there going to be the VM coming back at him in towards Lecom? Almost thinking about it, but not quite enough. So Tyne holds on to that. So maybe it actually is going to be 2-stop day. We're going to see a couple of hard compound runs here.
I don't know about you, Cam, but this race just kind of feels like one of those where we had the guys, starting the race, we had the order off of the line, and then the strategy just becomes a free-for-all. Some drivers are pitting in almost every single lap, and you can't really pick the order out where they really are in terms of someone's got a pit stop in hand, someone has to make a stop, someone's already stopped, and actually when everyone else stops they'll be further in front. I think we're kind of going to have to wait until we get towards the latter stage in this race to kind of work out exactly where everybody is in the order, because it does feel a little bit all messed up as we do start to see our first front runner coming into the pit lane. Yeah, this makes sense, and McGorgy was just losing a few tenths to his teammate Darragh, so he maybe is struggling with the tyres a little bit. And actually, this is something that we've seen all season, where I think McGorgy's been slightly worse on tyres compared to Darragh, and I think that's what cost him in Silverstone, and maybe it's also what cost him at the previous race in Turkey. He had the massive wheel spin out of the final chicane there, and also I can't remember which. There's a race earlier this season as well. Oh, Singapore, potentially, where that wasn't the ideal situation. And look at the traffic he's come out into as well. So this is good for Jake and for Dennis, who've stayed out, because he's got 3 cars right ahead of him immediately. He will get the DRS, of course, but now he's going to have some time battling with these. There's Barbakov. He should be able to get that one done. Up ahead, we've seen Philip Pushki making the move on Zolciuk for what is currently 6th position as well, but certainly not the ideal place to come out of the pit lane. And one of the main drivers, well, the only driver that wasn't in that top train that you really don't want to be stuck behind if you are McGorgy is Pushki. Of course, the teammate of Bach, who will, happily try and do a hold-up job for his teammate if possible. So definitely slightly worrying times for McGorgy. He's got to make his way through on Shooks and Pushki really quickly. Otherwise, he may find himself losing out on the overcut. You can see there, I think he was going side by side down in towards Puon, and I think he's made that move, but really having to be going aggressive.
Oh, don't often see moves in towards Puon. Wasn't quite expecting that, but I think he's got it done. In the background, we have seen, as Zolciuk said, struggling a little bit with that one. So let's try and have a look at this from Owen McGorgy's point of view, as he obviously got the run out of speakers, down the hill. Push to pass would have been used, but to the inside, hard to the inside as well. Would have definitely had to gone down a couple of gears here, down to 5th gear, and then managed to work his way back up. So crazy stuff there from McGorgy, but that just shows you how important it is. But let's go back to live, because we do have some pit lane runners. Bock and Hoyer stay out, interestingly, but Denahan and Dennis Jordan come in. Dennis on the... Is that the yeah, Dennis is on the mediums, whereas Jake Denham is on the hard compound tyres. Where is McGorgy? There is Philip Pushki as well. Has Dennis Jordan been able to jump McGorgy? Not quite, but he is going to get the run up the hill. And we've got Philip Pushki involved here, who is still out there. Not pit yet. He did get involved a little bit back at Turkey as well, subject to his track position. Here comes McGorgy to the left-hand side, and Dennis Jordan will be trying to fight his way through. That's going to be a tough one, as he's going to have to sit behind him. This is a little bit awkward. Very tight there with the German driver, and unfortunately he's actually lost time there to the 2 race coach cars. So it hasn't worked out nicely for Dennis Jordan, as it's actually worked out very nicely in the end for Jake Denahan, who didn't really have to get involved with at all with any of that traffic.
Yeah, no full commitment at all, really, for Jordan. He was looking at the move. He thought, oh, I don't know, can I go around the outside? Can I maybe make this work? And he was doing that whilst going around the corner. It meant that contact was inevitable, and now he's got some work to do, really, in terms of the gap he's now got to Dennehan and McGorgy. It's over a second and a half now. He's well out of DRS range, and this is exactly the kind of opportunity that the race clutch guys would have been looking for, to be thinking, right, we need to pull that gap. We need to try and make use of this advantage that we've gained to try and pull away, try and break this advantage and make this a two-horse race between us, because then we can try and, you know, work the championship in our favour in this regard. We still haven't seen Bock and Hoyer into the pit lane, but with Bock maybe losing a little bit of time, you'd have to say he's going to come out in this range with Pushki, with Kalash as well. They're coming in now, but Bock may get holed up in the same way that Jordan did.
I think looking at the gap that's opened up between Jordan and Pushki on this lap, there's over 2 seconds already, so Pushki really a lot slower there. I think Bock might just be okay. Let's see. And of course, Bock is the teammate of Pushki, so I think there'll be a bit less time lost as such than Dennis Jordan had. Out of the pit lane, they are quite a bit behind actually, but there is Pushki actually came into the pit lane, so that's why that gap opened. Up ahead though is Kalas, who's jumped Michi Hoyer there. A great job from the Grand Fake driver. He might be able to get Yannick Bock, who's still getting up to speed with the momentum, out of the pits, and there's quite a bit of push to pass being used here. He's got up to almost 330 k's an hour, but now is just going to have to sit in behind. So Bock is looking decent. He's also on the medium compound tyres. Michi is also on the medium, so it's hard versus medium at the front. But the choice here now is quite interesting. So the drivers on the hards, I assume they're possibly going to push and go to the mediums at the end, potentially. But the drivers who take a medium for a second time, they can't take mediums again. So they're going to have to use either the hards or the soft at the end. So the tyre strategies in this final stint are still opening up quite nicely.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who has that tyre advantage, that pace advantage into that final stint, to try and really make it work for them and really make it pay off in terms of what they've done, maybe going a little bit more conservative early on to really go aggressive in the final stint. We saw that work quite nicely in the Pro Championship just a couple of hours ago, and it may be able to, or something similar may be able to happen for the likes of Maggio in this World Championship race. Of course, he's not necessarily in the fight for the win, Maggio, but the strategy that he's on, I think, is definitely one that some drivers and some teams would be looking at. With Dennehan, McGorgy and Jordan at the front now, Bock, of course, is on those fresher medium tyres. You'd expect him to be gaining, but we'll have to see if these front three can try and work together to try and pull away. You'd expect Bock to catch up, but it's interesting to see how this is going to go, because of course Dennehan and McGorgy will go back onto a medium, we think, and Bock and Jordan will probably have to go to hard, but it just depends on the stint length that these guys can pull.
And look at the undercut as well, because Bock and Hoyer were right on the back of these three, but they're now nowhere to be seen in shot. So the undercut is very powerful there. McGorgy is going to be getting back past his teammate. Dennehan goes to the right-hand side, and obviously don't quite see this as battling as such, because I think they're just making sure that they go as fast as they can. As in the background, Hoyer gets past Kalas, so that was an important one, because they have Brakshock coming up behind them in that 7th place. So quite a mixture of teams we actually have at the front here. The top 10 has 2 race clutch, 2 VMs. So that's what, 8 different teams inside the top 10. So that is rather nice to see.
Yeah, it's good to see. It's also good to see those tight gaps, just to keep the competition up, isn't it? Really, in the World Championship, you'd expect, with these being some of the top drivers on the platform, the time is close and competitive, and that's exactly what we've got. And it's a pleasure to see these guys really going at it toe to toe in this way. And 17 laps in, to see the top 9 split by 9 seconds, it's fantastic, and it really lends itself to some good racing that we're looking forward to in the second half of this race, because there's still a lot of chance for it all to tighten up again, particularly for the final stint, if the strategies suddenly become reversed. But yeah, we're getting treated here, really, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm interested to see if race clutch go double hard or they go hard medium. Because if they go double hard, then obviously then if Dennis maybe goes hard, then they're going to be equal in the final stint. But if they eke it out and go mediums, then there could be a difference, an advantage there. In which case, this is the stint where Dennis has the advantage and where he needs to try and get past. But it doesn't look like he's really ever been close enough. I assume he's just not dumping that push pass out of last source, which maybe the 2 race clutch cars are. They're working together as they get to the slipstream up here. It's actually a bit of bump drafting this time around, so no position change, just some bump drafting to try and hold on to that P1, P2 that they've got at this moment in time, but it seems to be working out nicely. Brackshock is now in the DRS of Callas, who has lost 2 seconds to Michi Hoyer, so Callas there maybe making a slight error on the previous lap, because once Hoyer's got past, he's gone off into the distance.
Yeah, I think in regards to the race clutch, guys, the smart thing to do here, if you're Jake Dennehan, is to really sit behind your teammate. Of course, yes, you're both in the title battle. Yes, you know, McGorgy's only 21 points ahead of Jake Dennehan coming into this race. McGorgy's got the best chance at winning the Drivers' Championship. You wouldn't want to not sabotage, but almost take away from the chance that your teammate has in winning the Drivers' Championship while you're both in 1 and 2 in a good position to help out in the Teams' Championship. So I think this is smart, really. Dennehan acting as a rear gunner for his teammate at this stage, because you can see Jordan is still there, he's still hanging around, and Bock is getting closer as well. So he's going to become a factor relatively soon, and having McGorgy in the lead is really just going to protect him from any kind of challenge. When if Jake Dennehan's going to take the flak, it still means that McGorgy's going to pick up the points for the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, I think what they should have done, in hindsight back in Silverstone, was try and make sure... I know it was difficult because they were chasing Bock for the lead and McGorgy was sort of suffering the tyres a bit, but they probably should have put more of their eggs in one basket in helping McGorgy at that time, and this might be a race where they're now starting to do that. As we've had Ruben Macheda, he's gone off, unfortunately, up at Lecom on the previous lap. This time around, are they going to swap? Yeah, they are going to do so. So Jake was actually a little bit too close to bump draft, really. So he's going to take the lead. Obviously not getting too excited about that one, as they're going to do it a few more times over the course of this race, I'm sure, before we get to the final 5 or 10, where they'll actually work out who they want to try and battle for the win. But it does depend what we're going to see with Dennis Jordan in behind. He's getting close. He's on the medium tyres. Yannick Bock a little bit too far behind, but he has got Michi Hoyer following him. So these 3 medium runners all chasing down at the front. And I still think this is the stint where they need to try and do something to get ahead of the hard runners.
It doesn't really feel like we've got a particular driver in the lead, does it? It just feels like Race Clutch are in the lead. Whether it's Dennehan and McGorgy, you know, they're working together. They're not really overtaking each other. They're just working together to try and help their position. If Jordan or Bock start getting involved, then it becomes more of a battle for the lead. But for the time being, really, Race Clutch are happy in the lead. They're sitting nicely, and coming up to these second round of pit stops, they're in a very good spot.
Let's see what happened to Ruben Macheda. He's on the soft compound tyres, working his way through Lecom, just losing the rear end. Bit of overcorrection. Does he go into the wall? He does. Does he have his rear wing on? He also does, but he does come into the pit lane at the end of that lap, and he's actually DNF'd from that race. And Kevin Morville has also DNF'd. Oh, it's a disconnection from the French driver, unfortunately, there. So in the space of about 30 seconds, we've had 2 DNFs from this race, and we make that up to 4. So Van Vukas and Grankvist, and now Macheda and Morville. 4 drivers out.
Getting to a range where if you finish, you're going to pick up points now. I mean, only Shooks and Barbakov are, in the race, but not in a points-paying position. So just keeping him behind will do. Keeping going, and you might be picking up some points for your troubles at the end. McGorgy goes back to Dennehan, again swapping once again as they make their way down the Kemmel. And with every passing lap, I was going to say the box getting closer, but that gap is starting to stagnate a bit. 2.6 is the gap, and you start to feel like these hard tyres are coming into their own a little bit against the mediums.
Yeah, they are very, very consistent. They are a bit slower, but they're just very consistent. And looking at the previous lap times, yeah, they're basically all doing the same times within a 10th or 2 here and there. So no major changes, as you say. And that is why Bock and Hoyer aren't really on the back just yet. I think they will be, though, at some point. But Race Clutch are playing this very, very well in terms of they are trying to lose as little time as possible, because they've seen that Dennis isn't really going to do anything, but they just want to sort of try and pull away from that P4, P5 battle. But I think it's going to be a 5-way charge as we go into that final stint. Because it does look like they were on 2 stops, judging by how far they went in that first stint, up towards the final corner. And no move this time from Dennehan, but he's going to sit there in that 2nd place. And of course, it's always one of these where they at some point they're gonna have to decide how they want to end this race. But I don't want to be the driver in their ear telling them who's going to finish in front of who.
Yeah, kind of want to leave them be for the time being, especially with everybody so close behind, and it seems that they've got it under control between them for now. But that can all change quite quickly, and plans can be undone in a heartbeat. So you've always got to be on your toes, and always got to be careful, and kind of just waiting and watching, just making sure everything's going okay, making sure that the drivers behind aren't catching, and if possible, really starting to gain, really trying to turn the screw and force them into some errors. Here's Isaac Gillison putting himself back up into the top 9 on the back of time, who doesn't really have any answer to that, as Gillison looks now to try and overtake Maggio in the not too distant future. But we're getting towards half distance now. We're looking towards that second pit stop phase in the next, you're looking 6-7 laps time if for the early stoppers particularly, and that's really where we're going to see who goes where on the tyre strategy. Yeah,
for those pitting at lap 11, I mean already next lap potentially for the 3 stops, although more people than I was expecting are going for that too. I thought the 3 stop would be a little bit more favourable for some drivers, but maybe not so today. Let's see how that one works out. For instance, like Maggio, he pit very early, but then he did go to the hards, so interesting choices. But as ever with this season of FSR 24, you can kind of do whatever you want with the tyres within reason, so it's working out quite nicely indeed. So Isaac Gillison up inside the top 9 now, and I was sort of focusing on this battle because they've lost that gap. So I thought Maggio, who was only about a second or so behind Brackshock at one point, was going to be there, but unfortunately has not been able to keep up. So it has turned into a bit of a 2-class field at this moment in time. Well, sort of 3 classes as such. You can see them on the track map. So the ones on the main straight, the ones in the final chicane, and then the few coming up towards Blanchimont.
Yeah, a couple more pit, one pit stop going on. It's Tyne coming in his NetRex car. He's going to be changing tyres. One of the early pit boxes as well. Nice and early in the lane, not having to go too far before getting to your mark, and then you have a nice little drive down towards the end of the pit lane, getting ready for your pit exit. He should be alone when he comes out. Barbikov coming through now, so Tyne will be last, but again, free air. Let's see what he can do on the undercut, because we've seen it work wonders for some other drivers. But 22 laps on whatever tyre is going would be a very, very long stint.
And then there's Gillison getting past Maggio. So got past Tyne, then Tyne went in the pit lane, and now he's made that move. So these mediums are definitely a bit faster, as we've seen, but not fast enough for Dennis Jordan to make any sort of move. So is that just because Dennis is sat there saving a bit of battery, or is it because he basically just can't overtake because Race Clutch have good pace? What's interesting though is actually on the back, we can see Bock is almost there. He's so close to being there on the back of Dennis Jordan. So that's a very important factor, because once he gets DRS, which I think he might do in 1 lap's time, then that is going to be a 5-car battle once more. So they pit around that 14-15 mark, so we are still expecting them to go another 8 laps on these tyres.
Yeah, Bock is there now, isn't he? He's right in this. But it's taken him much longer than I think he would have hoped for. He's been... I mean, he came out of the pit lane just about 3 seconds behind, and he's gained a couple of tenths every single lap. I said before that it stagnated, and it didn't really change for a couple of laps, but he's now got a little bit closer, got his tyres, maybe collected them back up, and now he is definitely within range. 1.8, he's less than a second behind Dennis Jordan in P3. But with Jordan, Bock and Hoyer on these mediums now, and the 2 Race Clutches on the hards, it would suggest that Race Clutch would have the better tyres towards the end of the race. But it might also suggest, with that Jordan, Bock and Hoyer may pit slightly sooner. So this could be interesting on the pit stop, but I think when we get out of this second pit stop phase, we're going to have a real race on for the win.
And about the 15th lead change between these two. But it is now Dennehan who gets through Yannick Bock. A little bit too far this time, but he's just ever so slightly far. Remember, in FSR, it's 0.7 for the DRS detection. Obviously down from the 1 second that you'd expect, and Bock was just slightly outside of that, so he needs another few tenths and then he will be there. And I think the most patient person on this grid right now is Dennis Jordan, because he's kind of invisible as such in this battle. We don't really need to speak about him. He's just sat there behind the Race Clutch cars. He's not chasing down anyone, he's not overtaking anyone, he's just sat there in 3rd place, as he has done from the start of this race, and you would expect at some point he's going to try and make a move.
Yeah, you would at some point. I think maybe Dennis Jordan. Oh, his block was a little bit wide. Dipped a wheel into the gravel. Maybe Jordan, particularly, is just sitting in behind, waiting, knowing that he's there, and that if he tries to attack Race Clutch now, they can hunt in a pack. They can kind of see it coming for the rest of the race. If he just kind of holds back and keeps his cards close to his chest, he can maybe try and do something in the final stint, try something different, or really just try and attack the top two. Because there's no point at this stage fighting them if you're going to still stick with them regardless and be in the same position in 10-15 laps time when you're still in P3 and you're not losing a position to Bock and Hoyer behind. So I definitely think that there's a game being played here, particularly by Dennis Jordan, but we'll have to see if the gamble pays off as such.
Absolutely, and we're seeing Maggio come into the pit lane. So was only like 13 laps on the hard compound tyres, and now is he gone to the soft?
So didn't he pit really, really early, like at 6 or 7?
Or maybe it was lap 9 actually.
Or lap
Fair,
9,
might have
so
actually
something
been lap
early
9,
though.
in which case it would be 15 laps, but still, I was expecting him to go a bit further, but now he's on the soft, and he's got 20 laps to go, so 10-10 I would assume, soft, so actually it's not working out too bad. Patrick Sever, in the meantime, gets past Valeriano, so yeah, things are still working on the strategy, and as you see, you can basically do anything that you want, and is going to end up working out maths-wise, because the tyres aren't massively far apart from each other, so if you imagine last year, the compounds were 1, 2, and 3. They're now kind of 1.5, 2, and 2.5. So they're a lot closer together this year. And they, yeah, not just in terms of the wear, but the grip as well. So it's actually worked out quite nice to keep it together. Whereas last year, the hard tyres were so much better than the soft that everyone just used the hard. Whereas now the soft tyres are actually being used quite a bit in these races.
And it's kind of nice to see that we have that kind of differentiation in the strategy with lots of different drivers going lots of different ways, because it keeps not just us, well, not just the drivers on place, but us as well in the commentary box, trying to work out who's going for what, how it's going to impact the race, and who's going to really be able to benefit from a couple of strategy changes. But we're 20 laps from the end now. We've got the top 5 by 2 seconds. 2 compounds of tyres, different strategies on show. You could argue 3 different strategies in terms of race clutch on the same. Bock and Hoyer pitted on the same lap. Jordan, though, a little bit of an outlier, kind of doing his own thing. We'll see how it all works out. But once we get through these second stops, I think, the action might heat up and we're not just, casually talking about Denner taking the lead again ahead of McGorgy. We're talking about maybe Jordan, Bock, Hoyer getting in on the act because, really, they're just racing to the end on the tyres that they're on.
And we are starting to see these 5 close up now. So the total spread is about 2 seconds to Hoyer, whereas it was 2 seconds to Bock at one point. So we are closing up, especially Dennis Jordan here getting very close to the back of what is currently McGorgy in that second place, and is just sitting patiently, biding his time, or waiting for the opportunity to do something to try and get past these race clutch cars. So he has to take hard or soft, because he's done medium. So he has to take hard or soft. Does he pit a few laps early, get the undercut, go on the hard? Or does he try and go a little bit longer, then use the soft at the end? Or does he try and match them and go on the hards and then just push like a madman because he's got the tyre life? It's a very interesting one. And then there's also race clutch. Do they try and pit a bit earlier to keep the hard compound tyres, keep the undercut, keep the track position? Or do they then go slightly longer and try and use the mediums for a bit more speed? It's certainly any of the options will work. It just depends how they're feeling and what they exactly want to do. We're probably still 5 laps away from that time, but just something that they need to start thinking about at least with preparing for their pit stop.
So what, we've got 8 or 19 laps to go. Hard tyre runners, maybe, they're looking at a pit lap in 2 or 3, not that much longer. If you're going onto a medium, maybe you're looking for something a little bit more. I mean, it's fully possible that all 5 drivers are going for a hard tyre, I should say. Denner and McGorgy, yeah, they're not going for a medium. I don't think that would be very legal. But Jordan, Bock, Hoyer, maybe they're going for hard, but I'm thinking Denner and McGorgy, as we're seeing Jordan nearly go for it. But Denner and McGorgy, they've done very well on these hard tyres. They've had good pace. They have the option of the medium, but maybe the hard will work just as well if they can stay at the front of the train.
And this is getting tense now. So McGorgy had to make the overtake because otherwise Dennis would be getting past him. So he had to fill that gap on the inside. So now this is getting to a bit where we need some good communication from the race clutch cars. So the person in second place is always constantly updating with the position of Dennis, because otherwise he could potentially get both of these drivers. It's a very tough situation that they're in, because while it might sound good that they're P1 and 2, it's actually sometimes a negative point of the race, because you have to be very careful with where you put your car for that track position. But they're doing a good job of it so far. For 26 laps, they've been able to hold back Dennis Jordan. Dennis has been close a few times, has put that pressure on, but look at McGorgy now pulling away. Remember, Dennis was almost touching the back of McGorgy half a lap ago, and now look at where he is. He's good second up the road. Bit of bump drafting in towards the final chicane as well for good measure, and now the race clutch cars have control once more.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, race clutch have just seemed in serene control all the way through, haven't they? They've just seemed very calm, very collected. There's been no panic. They've been swapping the lead. You know, it's just seemed very under control. No worries. It's a Sunday evening. You know, Le Mans just finished. You know, you've had a lovely weekend. Let's just make sure we get a 1-2 here. There's no panic. There's no rush. It just seems all nice and calm. I'm sure Jordan wants to upset that in the not too distant future. The pit stop's going to help in that regard. But for McGorgy and Dennis, it's just a lovely Sunday afternoon. They're swapping positions. Once again, that must be at least the 15th time now, if not 20th, that we've seen Dennis and McGorgy swap positions. You know, probably getting close to a record in FSR in regards to lead changes. But, you know, there's no worry, there's no panic. It just seems at ease at this stage.
Yeah, they've definitely done their practice and their homework for this race. That's actually something that Owen mentioned in the interview of the previous race, where he said they actually kind of needed to do a bit more practice. Of course, we did have VC Le Mans at the previous race, so that certainly hindered the preparation just a little bit, as well as the mental energy doing a 24 hours before coming to an FSR race. But still, did say that potentially they could put in a few more hours just to be that little bit more comfortable, because Bok has beaten them on strategy at least 3 times this season. Not necessarily on pace, but on strategy alone. And that's something that they've needed to work out. And today, their at least race strategy is looking good. Whether their tyre strategy is going to work, we still need to wait for that final pit stop. But they are looking very comfortable. And to be honest, this team did last season as well. So whatever they did with the setup is working. But we are seeing the likes of Dennis Jordan a lot closer than what we saw last season. So they've made some improvements.
They have, and it's good to see, you know, at this stage of the season with everybody so close together, generally, isn't it? I mean, pace has stayed close, even with, you know, the practice that they all do. They're not really fighting too much over each other, and it's still staying close for us as viewers and for us as people who are really excited about the series, just to see some nice close racing. Jordan is as close as he has been in a very long time. Is he going to go for the move here? I think this is the time.
Oh, he's got one of them. Can he do 2? Up the inside it's going to be. He might just have to back out of that one. It gets very tight and narrow through Lecom. And he had the opportunity there, but race clutch once again, just timing that perfect. I thought Jake was going to be a bit of a sitting duck, because McGorgy had to pull out so early. There wasn't any sort of push and bump draft, but Danahan just was able to brake late enough. And Dennis Jordan is still putting on the pressure there. And what he's doing is he's putting them in a situation where they could easily crash into each other and easily make a big mistake. So it's a good thing what he's doing there, actually, from Dennis, because he was like, well, if I get the position, I get the position. If not, they might crash.
Yeah, I mean, you just said there, Jordan had 1. Could he get 2? In the end, he didn't get either of them, because race clutch placed the car so well that Jordan, all he was doing was sticking a nose down the inside of one of the cars at Lecom, and that is a death wish, really. If you're just sticking a nose in, you're not committed enough. You really have to be more committed if you're going to make that overtake. But it shows that he is starting to be interested in making that move. He's starting to turn the screw, make this a bit of a fight that it hasn't been so far. And even there, looking for a move in towards the bus stop chicane. No one coming in this time around. We've got 16 to go. And Jordan, yeah, he's had enough now. He's had enough of the front 2 dropping around. He's going to get a move on.
Yeah, so if you want to go now and take hards, then basically everyone now can pit and go to the end. So that is what you want to do, but surely you're going to want to wait and take the mediums. It looks like the mediums are the better tyre. It's just these three behind Race Clutch haven't been able to get past, subject to the track position and the stronghold that Race Clutch have had. I reckon if these guys weren't there, the medium guys effectively would be quite a bit further up the road. Jake Dennehan retakes the lead on lap 29 of 44. 15 laps to go at the end of this one. Patrick Sever is the driver down the pit lane as we speak. Callas has also come in. He's out on the hard tyre, so that leaves Brackshock out on his own, with Isaac Goodison just a little bit behind. And then we have the front five, who are still all within 2 seconds.
Yeah, we're still waiting for their pit stops, if and when they ever will come, quite frankly. I was thinking maybe it was going to be a couple of laps ago. You know, it could. Maybe they're going to the end, Cam. Who knows? It'd be difficult, but I wouldn't bet it past a couple of these guys. But these five, they really just have to pull away from the rest. While all this is going on, you can see the gaps out to P10, Pushki, 28 seconds. We were talking about it being about 10 seconds after about 10, 12 laps. They've just been eking that out really quite consistently over the course of this race. And we have a case of the top 7 are split by 12 seconds, and then 8th through 17th is split by 18 seconds with a 10-second gap in the middle. So we've just kind of got echelons forming in this race now. Oh, but it's Dennis Jordan. I thought I just said Jenice Jordan there, which isn't his name. But is anybody going to the pit lane? McGorgy is. And
both of them. Both of them come in. So it kind of makes sense, to be honest. But were they not one lap different in that first stint? Potentially. But as we see, they go on to the medium compound tyres, and then hards for Jake. So mediums for Owen, hards for Jake. I'm very surprised by that with the tyre wear potential issues that we've seen McGorgy in some races. But I think one of them needs to do this. They need to split the strategies, and unless there's a graphic glitch there, which we have seen before, but I wouldn't be surprised that Jake has taken those hard compound tyres, and he's actually kept a decent gap from Owen on the pit exit as well. So they are going to be getting the undercut, and it's now the decision of these guys. Are they going to cover off one lap early and go to the hards? Because these drivers cannot take another set of mediums. They've done medium. Or do they try and stay out, let the undercut happen, but then taking the soft? That is the thing that they need to decide now. Because if they go on the hards, then they're going to be the same as Jake, but then they're going to have to overcome the pace. Actually, no, Jake has updated. He's also on the mediums. So Jake is on the mediums, and that is going to be tough for these guys to then overtake when being on the hard. So surely they're going to have to stay out and try something on the soft.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, the live timing is updated quicker than the tower on the left, but they are both on the medium tyres. So this is going to be interesting just to, see whether Dennehan and McGorgy can make this work together. McGorgy a little bit further off the back than Dennehan, but they are still working together. That gap to the leaders, 18 seconds. They pitted into a very, very nice gap. That gap I was talking about between the front train and then the rest. Maggio is 4 seconds off the back of these guys, and they've got a lot of clean air in front of them, and as they are in 4th or 5th and 6th, I should say. But as Jordan and Hoyer come in now, this is really going to be where we see the tyres, the decisions, and where they are in terms of the track position.
Okay, he's stayed on the mediums. I do not believe that because he's on medium already, so we'll have to wait for that to update Mitchie Hoyer as well there. So we'll have to wait and see indeed. But this is interesting times because where are they? They're obviously going to be behind, but they're actually not too far. So the undercut wasn't absolutely ridiculous. It's probably a good second, maybe a bit more than that, second and a half by the time they get up to speed. But interesting times with the strategy here at the front, with Race Clutch getting out onto those medium compound tyres after using hards in the middle stint. So Jake is losing the place there. McGorgy goes through. What can Dennis Jordan do now?
It's going to be interesting. Of course, Jordan and Hoyer have that 1 lap advantage on the tyres, which I think will really become prevalent towards the end of the stint. But for now, there shouldn't be too much of a difference. We've also got the fact that Bach, on our screens now, he hasn't come into the pit lane. Is he stretching for a soft compound tyre, or is he going to come in now? I mean, Jordan, you can see him on the softs now. Are they going to last? I think that's really the question. He's going to have to use them pretty quickly, because otherwise, I think towards the end of the stint, he's going to find it difficult to come back through the top 2.
Yeah, he kind of needs to get through and overtake, and then hope he's got tyres to defend. I don't know if he's sitting behind is really going to work. And yeah, it has updated on the live timing. So Hoyer and Jordan are on the soft compound tyres. They're going to have a decent grip advantage, especially for the first 5 laps or so. It just is so difficult that they got 2 cars to overtake. Bok does come in. So it's going to be 13 for Bok and 14 for Dennis Jordan. Across the line we go. Magorgi, as you expect, retakes the lead, and then he's got Jake, Dennis and Mitchie all chasing him down. Dennis is there. Mitchie's a little bit far behind. Where is Yannick? He is going to still be ahead of Maggio, who is in P6, but Maggio still owes us a pit stop, remember, to get to the end.
He does, but with all the tyre graphics that have updated, we can clearly see top 2 mediums, 3rd, 4th, 5th softs. Jordan has got the DRS and he's using it on the back of Dennehan, who is really just bump drafting Magorgi. And I think this is where we're going to start to see Dennehan act as rear guard, because as we know, Magorgi's in that title battle for the drivers. There are 10 points between himself and Yannick Bok. If Bok manages to get himself up into 4th and Magorgi can still win the race, we touched on it at the start of the stream, they're going to be level with 2 rounds to go in the championship picture. So there's no reason for Jake Dennehan to overtake Owen Magorgi at this stage. I mean, maybe for personal pride, but I don't think they've worked so well together that that'll end up being the case. But I think they're also going to be hoping for the likes of Jordan and Hoyer to kind of block Bok, you mind the pun, and keep him further back, because they're just going to be able to gain points from the position that they're in.
Yeah, this is going to be fun and games indeed. So Bok going that extra lap. Look at the undercut he actually got for being 2 laps different to race clutch. So he's got an extra couple of seconds he's going to chase down and burn up his tyres in doing so. So interesting times. We'll see if this one works out, because for Bok, if Magorgi wins, he needs to be in 4th place to be equal. If he's in 5th, Magorgi is going to take the championship lead. So that is an important factor that he needs to work out as well. Because realistically, he actually wants to be in that 3rd position. If no one can overtake the stronghold of race clutch, he at least wants to be 3rd. So when we get to the end of the race, that is going to be a factor for him. Mitchie Hoyer is there though. So the soft tyres are definitely faster, because Mitchie was off this battle. But now, once again, Dennis needs to find a way past, and doing it on his own against 2 cars who are slipstreaming, who are DRSing, might be very, very difficult. But at some point, when he gets that opportunity, like he's had a couple of times, he's going to have to absolutely send it. Here he comes, almost 340 up the inside. It's going to be, he's making them think about it, and out to the left-hand side. That was getting close, and that is one of those opportunities where if race clutch aren't concentrating, he might be able to slip through.
Yeah, let's see how this could develop. Jordan needs to get a move on. He really needs to try and get this move done next couple of laps, just to apply the pressure on race clutch, because with every passing lap, race clutch become or get into a stronger position, not just because they've got less laps or Jordan has less laps to make the move stick, but those soft tyres are going to become worse in comparison to the mediums with every passing sector. The advantage that they have is going to erode, and eventually the mediums are going to be the tyre to be on, you'd expect, in the final few laps. So Jordan needs this right now, but you can just see him struggling a little bit through the middle sector, not staying as close as he'd like to the back of Jake Dennehan, who of course will pick up the DRS from his teammate and won't be at risk. So at the moment, this is looking very, very good for race clutch, unless Jordan and Hoyer Bok have something up their sleeve, because at this stage, it doesn't look like they do.
Yeah, tough position indeed. As you see, he's dropped off the back. I also reckon that's because he burnt a lot of push to pass there, doing that massive run up in towards Lake Com, so probably didn't have quite so much to use if he wanted to leave some in the tank remaining. Of course, you do regen under brakings in the background. Maggio goes into the pit lane for his final stop. But yeah, of course, you do regen under braking, but you still want to keep as much in the battery as you can. So it's also about you also save by using less, if that makes sense. So that's why he's probably just dropped off a little bit while he recharges. Bok is getting closer on the back of Hoyer. So that is going to be probably swapping around at some point if Bok is going to get closer, because yeah, he's sort of really coming in with those fresher tyres.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Bok, of course, he'd say fastest driver of the 5, probably, is in 5th. So, he's got to switch that on his head if he can. Going that lap extra, of course, he's got that advantage over the others, but has he just lost enough time in track position that it's resulted in, you know, him maybe struggling to get back to the other guys who, of course, are just following the leader with Owen McGorgy, picking up the DRS, picking up the slipstream and following accordingly. So, bit of a conundrum, I think, for Bok. He's not going to be overly pleased. If he finishes in this position of Owen McGorgy, will lead the championship by 3 points with 2 rounds to go. And he'll also have Jake Dennehan breathing a little bit closer as well. Jake Dennehan comes into this race 31 points back. But if it finishes as it is, that becomes 22. So, you know, it's still not right there, but it's just like a little, you know, a nag on the back of your shoulder. You know he's there. You know he's, you know, capable of gaining points like that. But for Bok at the moment, it's just really, I think, damage limitation.
Yeah, he's not going to win this race, I would assume, looking at how difficult it's been to overtake when you're on the same speed. So he now needs to just try and get past as many cars as he can up ahead of him. The issue for him is the laps are counting down and he hasn't made up any places yet. And he's not in the back of DRS of Hoyer. So it is going to be a last lap charge. It is quite funny how it's role reversal. Quite a few races this season boxed down the strategy to get the track position and then be defending. But it's now Race Clutch who are defending in this final stint, although to be fair, they've had the track position the whole race and the strategy hasn't actually changed anything up towards the front. Such is our point of view, can do whatever, and the strategy seems to work out. But are the softs going to come to their own at some point in this stint? Is Dennis Jordan going to have the opportunity?
I mean, like I said before, with every passing lap, it feels like it's less and less possible for him to have that chance, or to have that go. We saw him have that look where he nearly made the move at Lecom before the pit stops, but it's just not looking on. He's not got close. I mean, he's been there, but he's just not been able to touch Race Clutch. I mean, having said that, now we'll probably fly through, but he's just really not been at the races. You can see him just drifting a little bit wide, having a bit of understeer through pit path. And it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. Race Clutch have just played this to absolute perfection. And if they can somehow finish this race when effectively leading 1-2 the entire race long, I'm just going to give them credit for that because they've been absolutely excellent.
And this also comes down to their qualifying. Because they locked out the front row. They didn't bottle it in qualifying. They were able to then use that to their advantage on lap 1. And they held on to it. And every time Dennis has come close, they've been able to counter-attack with their defensive manoeuvre. So you can't take anything away, as you say, from Race Clutch. With the execution of this race so far, they just need to do it another 8 times to win this race. And hopefully get a 1-2. Dennis is a lot closer this time around. Let's see how this one goes. He actually loses some time, so maybe waiting to use his push pass a little bit later on, or maybe just doesn't have it to use, but he's been in the slipstream the whole time, so you know, I would expect him to do so. Jake Dennehan gets closer. Is he going to be going for the lead this time? No, he's not. He's going to be sitting behind, and Dennis Jordan there, maybe just saving up for you know, a bigger lunge a bit later in the race.
Yeah, let's see. Zalagianis coming in for a late race pit stop. So is Vac in his optimal eSports car. They're not in the race, are they? Realistically. They're going to be ending up fighting with Shooks and the others at the back of the field. We're going to get a replay of something that's happened, and it's going to be
Not
Thomas
this.
Vac.
Not this.
Looks like it's going to go well. Oh, it's not this.
Yes, I was trying to find it. So this was actually about 10 minutes ago now. So we got Patrick Sever, who's now out of the race. So he's now going to try and go around the outside. Result Shooks has a bit of a wiggle. Goes off the track. No, keeps it on. Through Malmedy, they go side by side. Oh, has a big wiggle and big contact. So this is actually how Zooks and Sever dropped down quite a bit. So that was a very awkward point, actually, for Sever, as he was on the inside there of Malmedy. Is he going to touch that inside curb? Yes, he does. Loses the rear end, makes the contact with Zooks, and unfortunately, big contact for both of them.
And I think that's one of those ones where Sevitz, Sevitz had that mistake, and he's hit Zooks, and as he's rolling backwards with, his car failing to work for him, he's just thinking, oh, I feel really bad. He's just made that error, and Zooks can't do anything. He just ends up being a passenger in it. And, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate, but if you're Zooks, what can you do, really? Wrong place, wrong time. A mistake from other drivers cost you a good chance, and that's just how it goes. But we've got 8 laps to go, and still nothing's changing at the front now.
Absolutely not. But Bok is now in DRS. And that is so weird. So his medium tyres on the car, but it's soft tyres on the tower. Now it's updated to the softs. So weird. And also, I have just been informed that there's a bit of a delay on the audio on the stream, so I do apologise for that. Obviously, just a little bit of lag in the game, but we don't want to miss out on the action of this in the final few laps of this race. So we'll keep with it and see exactly how it is going to end. Is it going to be in this order that we've been pretty much been for the whole race? Well, actually, I guess the only swap around here is that Bok lost out on the undercut to Hoyer the previous stint, but the top 5 have pretty much remained the same since the start of the race.
Yeah, there's really been no movement, has there, in regards to the top 5. Bok dropping back a position to Hoyer is about it. Top 3 started as they currently run, so it's just kind of been a bit of a much of this race, kind of just to the end race. I'm sure the others would have been hoping for a little bit more than that if you're not a race clutch driver, but in the end, that's just how it panned out. I think that's really going to be how it ends, because 7 laps to go. Unless there's some kind of catastrophic event, I just can't see this changing.
I do think Dennis will get another opportunity, but it's going to have to be a big send. We've seen him have those couple of runs to the inside of Les Combes, but at that point, on lap 20 or whenever it was not worth the risk of sending it down the inside with a Hail Mary. But at some point, maybe it is, as we're now seeing Denahan. Oh, actually, he's pushed away. I tell you what, he's pushed away very well. Dennis Jordan's not going to get... Oh, no, he does just get DRS because of where the detection zone is out of last source. But by the time they actually got to the detection zone, he's about a second behind. So he gained 3/10 there, just with a bit of the aero techniques. So they're really in such a such good fashion in this race. They just need to seal the deal in these final few laps, as we've been mentioning. Teammates battling. Maggio there on the second set of soft compound tyres, getting past Valeriano.
Yeah, I mean, these two running around, teammates not doing a bad job either, only about 20 seconds off the lead after, almost a full pro race distance, so going along quite nicely. I have to be honest as well, I've been trying to think of any kind of decent, like race clutch, clinch, pun, and I really can't think of any good ones. So I'm just kind of given up at this point, because I genuinely spent the last about 15 laps trying to think of one, and I just can't think of any. I
mean, the coming in clutch is about the only.
Yeah, exactly. It's
about the only one. I'm sure Lewis McGlade will get back to us with one of his amazing jokes that he'll have.
Yeah. I'm waiting to see if Lewis just messages with some kind of joke as well, which is almost inevitable. But we've got 6 laps to go. McGorgy, Denahan, 1 and 2. Jordan is there, but he's just not able to fight. Hoyer and Bot. I mean, it's great to see 5 drivers run so close together. I just don't think I've ever seen such a well civilized race for a title at this stage of the season.
Yeah, I think what it showed you here is that the slipstream is quite powerful to keep everyone close together, but there may be just due to the amount of straights that we have around here, but then maybe individually on a straight is not quite enough to really make a move, potentially, is what we're seeing. And especially when you're in a situation like Jordan, so he's following 2 cars, so the car ahead of him is getting DRS as well, so it makes it even more difficult to overtake. Of course, you could say that Hoyer's having the same on Jordan, but Hoyer, there's no reason for Hoyer to overtake Jordan, because their cumulative goal is to get past race clutch. So if he battles Jordan, they come out of the slipstream, then no one's ever going to overtake them. So it is a bit of a tough situation, that's for sure. But I still, as I said, I reckon there's going to be one final twist here. We've seen it. In fact, we saw it 2 years ago in 2022. Dennis Jordan, Mitchell are having a huge battle, huge ding-dong into Les Combes in the last couple of laps. In fact, it might have even been the final lap, and Damien Scovron got through for his first ever podium. And there was just absolute carnage. I think Hoyer ends up losing his rear wing in that battle. So you never know what can happen.
And I think on classic road courses, particularly in Europe, the one track where you really can't rule anything out is Spa. A lot can happen here. there's a reason that it's used so often in sim racing, and these guys know it so well. And you're right, surely something might happen. I mean, Jordan, he's still there. He's even if it's Hoyer on Jordan or Bock on Hoyer, I'm sure there's going to be at least one move attempted by one of the drivers here. But you can just see Darragh sitting in behind, not doing anything really to try and overtake McGorgy. His teammate who's in a very good championship position in terms of the drivers. It just seems like it's pedestrian. It's as I said before, pedestrian, calm, and they really just have it under control.
But I think some moves might still be coming in this race. Isaac Hillison on the soft tyres is catching down Callas on the hards. So there's quite a big pace advantage there. And in the next lap, he's going to be in the DRS range. So look for the Scuderia Ferrari driver to be getting up into 7th place there. And maybe just getting Brackshot for 6th, which, to be honest, for Gillison would be a very good result for him. Indeed, of course, coming into the championship late. His best position is 8th. That was his first race back at Silverstone. So he's already equaling that, and he does have the opportunity to try and get another place or two by the end of this race.
Yeah, we'll see if he can work his way a little bit further up the order. Realistically, P6 would be a complete cap. There's no way he's going to be getting up towards Bock unless disaster strikes any of the top 5. Disconnect, absolute loss of composure, something happening. Gillison's best is going to be looking like a P6. But I mean, even for the guys in the top 5, Mitchie Hoyer's going to be having a good time. He's only had one top 5 finish, and that was back in Singapore. He's finished every single race so far, once outside the top 10, but that one top 4 finish, this would be a good result for him, and he's still got a chance at the podium as well. So you might see him maybe try and look for a move down to the last couple of laps as he starts to try and, get a bit of a podium for his pride of the season.
Yeah, Mitchie's had a funny season, hasn't he? It's definitely been a bit of an interesting one, as I just want to come back to the front because Dennis Jordan is having a bit of a run. He goes to the left-hand side. He's going to have to try at some point. He has a slide, though. He has to cut over the chicane. He's going to have to give those places back, which he does so, but that is not an ideal situation. He has the run here, down in towards the hairpin. He's going to have to try and do something, but no, backs out of that one. Would have been a little bit cheeky with the ground that he made going off the track, so fair play to that one. But as I said, there's going to be a few opportunities. They're going to be tough, and that one was just way too wide, unfortunately.
Mitchie Hoyer will have been seeing that thinking, yes, please have a little bit of go. Try and cause some chaos because he will be there to pick up the pieces as well. We're going to see it again on a replay. But you can just see, I mean, they're almost just trying to block that racing line, force that outside move for Dennis Jordan, and then it becomes impossible. It's really quite good tactics in terms of the racecraft.
Yeah, just too wide there. Choosing the best option, though, to jump over the chicane, but then obviously having to give that one up. And did have a little bit of a think about it. At the same time, Gillison did make the overtake on Sander Callas. So that is going to be, just a nice, easy DRS move, as you would expect. But we're coming to just a few laps to go in this race. And what is the state of play up towards the front? It's a 5-car battle, as we've had. 3 laps to go, including this one. Lap 42 of 44 for the Belgian Grand Prix. 2 races remain at the end of this season. To the left-hand side, Jake went there. That was an interesting, trying to get out of the slipstream. Maybe just feeling a little bit of pressure from Dennis Jordan, who is starting to push, starting to use his battery a little bit. He's going to get the run. DRS opens as we come down the straight. And Jake Darragh is trying to go to the left-hand side. Doesn't even have DRS open to the outside. It's going to be contact is made. As for the second lap in a row, Dennis Jordan is going to go off and have to give it back. That's almost a replay of what we saw just 1 lap ago. A bit of a wiggle there, actually, as he's a little bit annoyed potentially with the contact being made.
Yeah, but I mean, Jordan was trying to go around the outside from behind in the corner, and Darragh was just taking a line. There was absolutely nothing wrong with what Darragh did. We'll go back again. We'll see it on board with Dennis Jordan. You can see Jordan just starts turning in a little bit earlier. He initiates the contact there, and then from there, he's losing the rear end, just trying to keep control of the car. So I don't really see what was done there by Jake Darragh. He's taking a line. He's been hit by Dennis Jordan, and realistically for Jordan, he's lucky that he hadn't spun around.
Yeah, I probably tend to agree with you there as well. A little bit unfortunate, actually, with the contact that was being made. It was just slight, but it was enough for Dennis Jordan to, unfortunately, slide the rear end for the second. But I can't believe that. That was literally almost a mirror image. And as we're coming up to 2 laps to go, the Race Clutch team now have a little bit of a gap there, and Dennis needs to try and close back in to get up. And we're still seeing Hoyer and Bock not doing anything in behind themselves either. So definitely is a tough track in the end to overtake, despite all of the long straights. Funny how that one works, so when everyone thinks you come to Spa. But 2 attempts left. Is this going to be another one? It was interesting from Denhan, actually. He wasn't using DRS on that previous one. But he certainly had the slipstream to be able to overtake. What are the Race Clutch cars going to do? Are they going to swap around? Are they going to bump draft? I think they are going to bump draft, which to me says that they want Owen McGorgy to win this race. Here comes Jordan, I should say, round the outside, in towards the second apex. Further contact is made. Now towards Malmedy, 3rd time in a row. He's sliding it now to the inside line. Jake gets a wiggle on and in towards the braking zone. It's going to have to be another run to the outside for Dennis Jordan. Unfortunately, he couldn't make that one work, but it was a little bit of a Hail Mary.
Again, Jordan just seems to be turning a little bit early, doesn't he? Into the corner. Just trying to really force it through, but with the line Jake Dennehan is taking, you really can't blame him. Dennis Jordan is just really not able to take that fast racing line. So you can see again, contact is initiated there, and then through the middle part of the corner, I think a bit of a block is put on by the 2 Race Clutch cars, and just about claiming the inside line does Dennehan. But I really think that they're out of the woods, or at least you know, the leader of McGorgy is out of the woods, because if we're going to get one more overtake from Dennis Jordan, you're only going to be able to get through on Jake Dennehan, and McGorgy, who was always meant to win this race, is still going to be out in front.
Yeah, I guess they're probably good for the race win as we're going to come on to the final lap. But as you say, can they hold on to a 1-2 finish? It's final lap time coming your way at the Belgian Grand Prix, and we are yet to see who exactly is going to win this race, because they've been swapping around all day. It makes sense for McGorgy to win. He's 10 points behind Bock. With Bock in P, is actually P4 now, so Bock has got Hoyer, so that's interesting. So Bock now would be leading, but tied with Jake, with Owen McGorgy in towards the final 2 races of the season, and up towards the Kemmel Straight for the final time. Dennis Jordan's nowhere near close enough, so it is going to be a Race Clutch 1-2 today, you would expect. And Owen McGorgy, one final opportunity for his teammate to overtake, but no, it looks like they're putting their eggs in McGorgy's basket for these final 2 races of the season.
Keep an eye on Bock as well, because he, after he got through Mitchie Hoyer, he looks like he's trying to be quick on the back of Dennis Jordan. He may not have enough, he may not have the run, maybe he's a little bit too much mastery in terms of trying to catch up to the train, but he might have a go towards the bus stop chicane. He looks like he's the one on the move, rather than Dennis Jordan, as they make their way through the middle sector for the final time. But you have to say, it's really just been a masterclass from the 2 Race Clutch cars. Racecraft has been on point. They just did not allow Dennis Jordan through, created a roadblock, made sure that he was on the wrong lines all the time, and it's resulted in the fact that McGorgy, the leader of the 2 in the Drivers' Championship, is going to come up with a fantastic result against his championship rival Bock, who's going to be 10 points behind.
As you say, for Bock though, can it be, or is it going to be, a tie championship, or is he going to get Dennis Jordan? But I think Dennis Jordan might have burnt his battery as he was trying to get those moves, because he hasn't been able to keep up with Race Clutch the last 2 laps. Bock does get through. So if it finishes like this, then potentially he's going to be leading the championship. But Mitchie Hoyer is also trying to get involved around the outside in towards the final chicane. Up the inside, no, it's not going to be that. So we'll jump to Owen McGorgy, is out to the final corner. What an amazingly controlled race from the Race Clutch cars. McGorgy wins the Belgian Grand Prix, followed by Jake Dennehan. Yannick Bock in 3rd place to just about scrape onto the championship lead, coming towards the final 2 races. But what a masterclass from Race Clutch. They didn't bottle it in qualifying. They got the 1-2. Then all throughout the race, they held onto it the best they can. Dennis Jordan tried his best, but a 2v1 situation was never going to end in his favour.
Yeah, I mean, Race Clutch, except for maybe 50 metres during the race, they controlled that 1 and 2 all the way through, didn't really look back, were working very well together, and pretty deserved the positions they were in. Bock, in the end, yeah, he was smart with his energy, he was smart with how he was making the moves, realised that, you know, with these guys fighting, they're probably going to be using their battery, sat in behind, waited, and then just picked up the pieces with it, you know, just being the easiest overtake of his life to get up into P3. He'll go into Austin, 3 points in front, but that is going to be a flimsy advantage, especially with the pace that the two race clutch guys have shown tonight.
Absolutely, and in the end, just one driver missing out points, which was Zoltjuk for Rafa, replacing Yoni Simicic. So Stoyan Barbakov on reserve for Go Team Racing has ended up in 5th place, and some great celebrations there from the Race Clutch team. And to be honest, just congratulations to them for how they controlled that. I'm sure Dennis will be a little bit disappointed, but he gave his best. Here are your unofficial results for the end of the Belgian Grand Prix. Magorgi takes the win and is now just a couple of points behind Yannick Bock in the championship going into the final 2 races. Jake Dennehan, an amazing defence, helping his teammate to that win in 2nd place. Yannick Bock in 3rd. Dennis Jordan in 4th place. That's a little bit more like it, and in fact that does tie his best result of the season. Mitchell is in 5th place. Janos Brakshock, a nice calm race in 6th. Isaac Hillerson, his best result of the season as well, in 7th place. Sander Callas down in 8th. Alex Maggio in 9th for reserving for Manuel Biancalilla. He should be very happy with that, especially considering that he was off the track after contact with Grankvist. And then 10th place is Valeriano, who also equals his best result of the season. So actually quite a strong race, and quite a good race for a number of drivers. Yoltain is in P11, Philip Pushki in P12, and talking of best races for the season, that surely has got to be Philip Pushki's. Yes, it is his best result in P12. Tomasz Vak is in 13. Zalagianis finishes a race and gets inside the points, his first points of the season in P14. Barbakov is in 15th, and then unfortunately the only driver to not get points is Zoltjuk in 16th place. Sevet, Morville, Macheda, Grankvist, and then one final driver at the end, Van Bucas, all your DNFs. So definitely an interesting one, and Darragh will try and get some words from these drivers in a few minutes. But just how many good words can we say about Race Clutch's organisation of this race?
we can say quite a few, can't we? I mean, it was really, really well executed. The plan was clear, and they executed it to perfection, never really looked back. Dennis Gordon was there, but he just wasn't able to make the move stick. There was that one lap, I think it was the 3rd from last lap, where he looked like he may be able to get through and up into P2, but great defense from Jake Dennehan, helping out his teammate, who's given them exactly what they needed. Absolutely,
and the Race Clutch drivers join us now in the commentary box, and of course we'll start with Owen Magorgi, race winner for another time this season. Just going to be a couple of points back, 4 points I think is going to be back behind Yannick Bock coming into the final couple of races. So Owen, overall, I mean, that was a good race. 3rd win of the season. Congratulations.
Yeah, the result is exactly what we wanted, or well, for us being top 2, maybe Yannick being P3 wasn't the best thing that could happen, but it's certainly not the worst. And the only thing I can really say is a massive thank you to Jake. He helped me so much throughout the race. He definitely had the pace on me as well. I knew I lacked a bit in the race, but I've got him alongside me, and thank God we qualified 1-2.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that actually. It really came down to qualifying ultimately, the fact that you were able to lock out that front row. Was that something that you focused on a little bit more, because it actually seems that overtaking around Spa is quite difficult, or was that just the fact of the pace you had today anyway?
I think it was just the pace that we had. We didn't mainly focus on qualifying. We didn't mainly focus on race. I probably did some of the most race practice I've done this season. Just testing out the tyres, trying to get the tyre wear on point, and yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. And then, throughout the race there, I mean, I stopped counting at about 20 lead changes between you and Jake. Is that something that you specifically practiced, or was that just pure communication in the race of sort of working out what you needed to do?
There were a few things that we practiced. We tried having one car stay behind to save battery, and then push as hard as possible when they passed. We didn't really try the overtake every lap too much. Jake said it was the wrong thing to do. I said it was the right thing to do. But we ended up doing it in the race, and it seemed like it worked.
Yeah, it was certainly good. And Thomas, I'll bring Jake in now as well, because this is a question for you. How much pressure was that? So firstly, congratulations on second place, but how much pressure was that holding on to Dennis there? I know there's a little bit of contact a few times in those last 5 laps, but I mean, you were sort of in a tricky position because we understand championship-wise, it didn't make sense for you to overtake Owen, but then you were kind of boxed in a little bit and you couldn't brake as late as you wanted. So just how was the pressure on that?
Yeah, it was difficult to navigate kind of where to brake and such. And I had to kind of communicate to Owen when to dump his battery on the straights, because only I can really see when Dennis is pushing. And ultimately, we ended up having enough battery that I was comfortable at the end. So to be honest, it was okay.
Yeah, and for your side, were you really just playing the team game? Because, I mean, realistically, mathematically, you're still in the chance for the championship, but is it one of those things where you are focusing on Owen now?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit far back now. I'm not sure exactly how much points I am now, but just 2 races left. It's very unlikely that I'll be able to catch up. So I think most of my focus is getting Owen up to the top step.
Yeah, good stuff. But for yourself, coming into the final 2 races, if you get the opportunity, I guess you're still going to be going for the win, though.
Well, yeah, if something happens with Owen or Yannick, I think it's kind of in my hands then.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, congratulations, both of you. Because also, I didn't get enough time to say it across the line, but it's, you are, of course, the Constructors' Championship, champions, I should say, for this season. So good job for that, and enjoy the final couple of races.
Thank you.
Cheers.
And now we bring in Yannick Brock of Evo, of course, leading the championship by just, it's actually going to be 3 points coming into the final 2 races. So that's what we like from the spectators' point of view. But from your driving point of view, just how did you find that race?
It was difficult for me. I think I didn't hit the pace from the top guys and just stayed behind and couldn't really profit from the slipstream, from the slipstream games they were doing all the time. And yeah, then in the end, I think I was a bit lucky that I had good tires, or better tires than the other guys, and could catch up. But yeah, obviously the top guys, Jake and Owen, did a mega job today with the quali pace, and yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Do you think there's anything different, though, that you could have done, or was it just because of where you were sort of at the end of that, well, really first few laps, that you just couldn't quite make the progress like we've seen in other tracks?
I think I just had the pace. Dennis could stay in the slipstream all the time and could really profit from this one, and I don't. And I was 1 second or 1.5 seconds always behind, and I lost so much on sector 1 and sector 3. And then yeah, tires were was worse than in the practice sessions, and so we were struggling in the end. I thought we could catch up always in the end of a stint, but we didn't. And yeah, I mean, these guys had great pace today, and so I'm lucky with the result of P3 in the end.
And it's funny how these races work out, because in the last 5 races, you've won 3, and Magorgi's now won 2, but he's still closed in on you, which is very interesting how that works out. But how are you feeling with 3 points in 2 races?
I'm feeling good. I mean, obviously this season is very good for me. I like the car, I like the tires, I like the grind in the practice sessions to gain tenths or half seconds with the setup and by driving and stuff. I like this preparation, and let's see what we can do in the last races.
Yeah, good stuff. Good luck, Yannick, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Yes, that certainly was a crazy race ending as such, because there could have been some big crashes there, Darragh, but in the end, we ended up with a race clutch 1-2, and they controlled the whole race pretty much.
Yeah, they didn't look back. They had the plan. They pulled it off incredibly effectively, and fully deserved to have their 1-2 at the end and the constructors' title with 2 rounds to spare. We also then have a good-looking championship battle in the drivers, with only the 3 points splitting the top 2 of Bock and Magorgi. That is really going to run all the way through Kota and in towards Suzuka. Denan as well, maybe if Magorgi has some issues, and Bock as well, maybe able to put himself in there by the time we get to Austin. But yeah, really looking like it's going to be a good final 2 rounds in the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look at what the schedule is. So, unfortunately, it's a triple header in Formula One. So, we're back in 4 weeks' time for the 14th of July for the United States Grand Prix back at COTA for the first time since 2019, 5 years ago. Very interesting track, very raceable as well. And then just a couple of weeks after that, 3 weeks after, we'll be back at Japan for round 10 and the finale of the season. Bok leads Magorgi by 3 points. They've been having a ding-dong all season. How is it going to finish? You'd have to find out the 14th of July. We thank you for watching. It's been myself, Cameron Rodger, Darragh Thacker alongside me. And until the next race, we wish you a very warm goodbye.
Hello, I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to Highlights.
Who's going to break Lasix world title?
For Mike Gosby. Oh, he's done it. And
Look at these two go.
Itchy Hoy's going to do it. His first victory.
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been.